Not long ago, here in Trenton, we were able to enact real reforms. 2% cap, pension reforms, interest arbitration legislation, teacher tenure, and even bail reform. And then came Bridgegate, and the national, state, and local media dominated our state with news reports concerning Bridgegate. Now we've had multiple investigations, and most important, the prosecutor appointed by President Obama, by a Democrat, investigated Bridgegate, and a jury verdict was returned. And now, the Democratic candidate for governor, one of them, Jon Bramnick, wants to begin more hearings, a new series of hearings. And before I go into that, for 14 years, we had not solved the TTF while Jon Bramnick was the chairman of the Transportation Committee. And the only reason we solved it was because we had a compromise when it went bankrupt. So with respect to hearings, it would have been nice if he had done hearings for 14 years on TTF so we didn't end up in a crisis. This announcement by Mr. Wisniewski, by Assemblyman Wisniewski, will create even more congestion and more of a logjam than we saw at the bridge. What will this do? It will focus the state on issues involving Bridgegate that have been resolved by a federal prosecutor, and will take the focus off the Democratic majority that will not address the issues that I think are sensitive to them and actually very concerning to their special interests. For example, we just saw a report that the pensions in our state are the most underfunded pensions in the country. As red buttons, you say, why don't we have a hearing for that? And what about school funding? I don't think anyone disagrees, anyone reasonable person would disagree that there should be some changes to the school funding formula, whether it be Hoboken or Jersey City, at least some changes that would affect the property taxes of people in suburbia. Now, bottom line is, the governor has a formula. That doesn't have to be the final version. Why don't we have a hearing on that? I'll tell you why. Because those are the hard things to do, and they don't in any way support the candidacy of Jon Bramnick for governor. It would support the taxpayers in the state of New Jersey. What about campaign finance reform? How about a few hearings on that? How about gerrymandering, which I've said is one of the worst policies in this state, where we have extremists who govern these districts because we won't address gerrymandering. I call on Mr. Bramnick, why don't you have some hearings on a system that, in my judgment, doesn't promote the middle? Governor Kane once said that 70% of the people in New Jersey want us to govern from the middle. Well, there's a perfect opportunity. Change the rules with respect to how we break up the districts in the state. What about Port Authority reform? Tom Kane Jr.'s bill. Maybe Mr. Bramnick wants to have a hearing on Port Authority review and Port Authority reform. The politics of personal destruction, not only at the state level, but the federal level, I believe threaten the basic institutions of democracy. This does not apply just to Republicans or Democrats. Every single leader in our region is under suspicion, whether it's Governor Cuomo or Governor Christie, whether it's Hillary or whether it's Donald Trump. We have reached the point where the focus, and we're all guilty of this, the focus is the negative. It's not policy, it's this era of personal destruction. So I would call upon the legislature to spend the next year focused on policy. And I'm deeply concerned that this goal of personal destruction is dangerous to our society and to our institutions. So on that, I'm happy to answer questions, but I think it's time for us to call upon the Democratic majority to deal with policy and not politics.